Good morning, folks. Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2026. The time is 9:15 a.m. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Pueblo County Board of Commissioners. This is a work session, a staff meeting. First up, please, let's do attendance, beginning with Ms. Mitchell.
Cynthia Mitchell, County Attorney.
Paula McFeeters.
Miles Lucero.
Pat, you are muted.
Commissioner Swearingen, we cannot hear you, sir, if you're trying to talk. We see you on. We will go ahead and count Commissioner Swearingen's face on the Zoom as a sign that he is here, and we will go ahead and move along. So the first item on the agenda today is a Community Development Block Grant closeout presentation presented by Ms. Sarah Long.
Commissioners, I'm just going to give you this now and I'll explain it.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Swearingen, I sent you this just a couple minutes ago in your email if you want to look at it. So today is mostly a legal requirement. The grants funding that we're going to talk about has certain requirements for what they call a public hearing, but the way we do it is just through a work session. And we did post, they have a 5-day requirement. So we published the notice of the hearing and provided an email address for any public comments in writing. We didn't receive any in writing. I do have to ask if there's anybody in the room, public comments. Does not look like it. That's not unusual. We rarely end up with public comments on this program. So we have reached the end of our grant period for our loans. And sorry, I have my notes on behind all right. So this is the Community Development Block Grant Economic Development Funds. These are federal dollars from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that are provided to the states to then grant to different entities, including local governments. And the purpose is the quote I'm going to say is encourage economic diversification and job creation and/or retention, which addresses the program objective of benefit to low and moderate income persons. So basically the federal dollars that come through, which we refer to as the CDBG funds, those dollars have specific requirements that are attached to them that include job creation or job retention for LMI, low to moderate income individuals within the county. And we originally received $290,000 on this grant cycle for the state. And that was from a contract that started in November 17th, 2021. It originally ran till December 31st, 2023. We didn't have any of the dollars loaned out at that point from that fund. So we received first a partial extension to April 30th, 2025, and then a final extension to April 30th, 2026. So this is the end of our contract with the state, which is why we're doing the closeout. We did end up lending those dollars out. Part of the difficulty with the CDBG fund is that they have these job creation requirements. And at the time when we loaned this money out, it was that you had to create one FTE for every $25,000. We're also restricted on those funds as far as location. We cannot loan to any businesses that are located within the city of Pueblo because they are their own entitlement area. So that was one of the reasons why it was really difficult to try and get these dollars out the door, is finding an application that actually meets the criteria for that fund. We have a second fund, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. We did loan those dollars out. There was a $250,000 loan. The subcontractor gets a 16% administrative fee that is set by the state, and it's built into our grants. So our grant was for $290,000. That gives them the $40,000 administrative fee for that $250 loan. Unfortunately, this loan is in default. They did not meet the job creation requirements. So we are going to have to pass that money back through to the state. And instead, that funding is going to come out of our secondary fund. Both of these funds are held by our subcontractor, NeighborWorks of Southern Colorado. None of these funds are in our budget. We just act as a pass-through. We can't hold the funds ourselves. We're required to use a nonprofit that meets certain criteria in order to administer these funds. So these funds will end up being returned to the state from our other loan fund. The other loan fund that we talk about is what we call our revolved loan fund. And it is created by the loans that are repaid from the CDBG fund. So if we loan out $100,000 in a loan on our CDBG funds, when that is paid back, it gets paid back into our revolved loan fund. And we then can use those funds for business loans with less restrictions. And as of this past fall, that includes no longer needing to use those dollars only in the unincorporated county. We can use the revolved fund for businesses within the city of Pueblo. And as you'll see in the chart that I sent you, those are all of our current fund loans that we had and the closed loans that we've had with NeighborWorks of Southern Colorado. If you look at that chart, the closing date for the first three are from 2014. Those are actually transferred from our previous service providers. So I don't know. We don't have information on whether those were originally CDBG or revolved, unfortunately. But since I started working on this program at the county in the 2018, every other loan down there has been a revolved loan. So as you'll see, we currently have a good amount of money out. All of these loans that are still in payment are paid up to date. One of them, you'll see it's already reached its maturity date, but it's actually being, they're looking at refinancing, and that'll either go through a bank if they're bankable, or if they're not bankable, they can apply for refinancing through our program again. So they are doing their monthly payments, even if it shows like an out-of-date maturity date on that loan. It's just that they do some of the loans as a balloon loan, which if you have more questions about, well, I can answer because that's not my expertise. But most of these, if you look, we do have some large loans, some small loans, and these have all gone out to businesses within Pueblo. I have the names, I have them there as business one, business two, just because some of the information that they have is protected, and everything on this chart's probably fine to disclose publicly, but I wanted to err on the side of caution. If you do want more information on the revolved fund, we could always set up a work session with NeighborWorks to come in and present to you, or I'm happy to meet with any of you individually if you have any questions. But the remainder in that fund right now is $718,536 to loan. So we will be wanting to apply for more CDBG funds down the line. Sarah Skinner is already kind of on top of helping us with looking at that grant application. It is very difficult to get those dollars out the door to find qualifying loans, but we do need that to feed into our revolved fund, or else we're just going to be waiting until the ones that are currently out are paid back before we'll have more money to loan out. And finally, I just want to say we will have a closeout report that will require approval of the BOCC and a signature. I'm just not sure. I reached out to the state. I'm not sure if we're supposed to submit that before or after they do an audit that they do. So we'll have that to you sometime within the next couple of weeks, maybe even next week, depending on what the state says.
You mentioned one FT hired for every 25,000.
Yeah.
So in terms of the list of businesses here, are we measuring and tracking that they actually have achieved that? Is that part of the loan?
So these businesses, since these ones are all on the revolved, they do not have that same requirement. They just have to be within a LMI area, which is pretty much all of Pueblo under the maps. So it's we have a board that approves. It's our own committee, so they have to, for the loan applications, they go through the board for NeighborWorks, but they also have to be approved by our committee that you all have appointed everybody to. And for that, they make sure that this isn't somebody who otherwise would be bankable. So we were looking at either backing, like they didn't get the full funding that they need, so gap financing, or people who, if they have a startup, they wouldn't necessarily be able to get a loan from a nearby bank, or maybe they have like bad credit history, but they have like a good loan application. The point, it is higher risk, but the point of these dollars are to basically help people who can't otherwise get a loan for their business.
So what's listed here, Sarah, on this sheet? These are all part of the revolved loan fund.
Yes, with the possible exception of those first three that have already been paid off. We unfortunately, our former service provider actually went out of business, and we did not get all the information from them when they transferred things over that we should have. So I don't know if those three loans were originally CDBG or revolved.
Okay. So I want to make sure that I understand. So HUD gives the state dollars, the state gives us the dollars, we give NeighborWorks the dollars, they give the program the dollars.
Well, they give out the loans that we don't actually pass them the dollars until the revolved fund is kept in the bank and they have the servicing those. But the CDBG grant, it's like a pass through. So they close the loan and then the state sends the dollars through. So we didn't actually get the dollars passed through. They comes to us and then it goes to them until they closed that loan for the $250,000.
Okay. And if the program, my words, I don't know if there's a better way to call it, the program that ultimately gets the loan, if they default, then the county's on the hook for repaying to the state?
We are legally responsible since the contract's with us, but so the funds come, but they come from our other loan that is our, what's the phrase everybody uses? It's like, basically it's when the loans are repaid plus the interest, that goes into our revolved fund. So it's money that was basically originally provided to us through the CDBG. It's just gone out to the community and come back in, which is why they call it the revolved fund.
Okay.
And basically in doing that, it drops some of the federal requirements.
What's the interest rate on the original loans, not the revolved, but when these loans are first going out the door, what are kind of the terms of them?
It's actually the same for both of our programs, and it is, we are required by state and have updated our policy to say it's prime plus or minus 2. The actual rate is usually determined both by NeighborWorks and then approved by the board, and sometimes renegotiated between NeighborWorks and the board when they're considering the loan. And that depends on a lot of the information that is within the loan packet and the like interest rates at the time. So they do differ. I don't know, Wally, if you happen to remember, I didn't bring a printout from the last meeting. I don't know what the current.
Yeah, I don't have that information in front of me either, but yes, it basically is around prime at the time, but it's a variable for each loan,
Okay.
depending on when it's
And
loaned out.
we do have a master sheet. So if you are interested, I could send you that information in an email or.
Okay.
And if it's all right, I'll add a little context. So yes, the money that is defaulted from that current loan does get paid back to the state by the revolving loan fund, which all of that money is created through the original CBDG because we've been receiving these funds on and off for a long period of time that's been building up that account. That being said, the loan that's in default, if they do not continue to pay or come into compliance, they will be sent to collections. We will find ways to get that money from them
Okay.
if possible. And that money will then go back into the revolving loan fund.
Okay.
So yeah.
Sorry, I should have clarified. If they continue to pay the loan, even though they defaulted by the standards for the CDBG, it would just be treated like like it was a revolved loan. So if they continue to pay the loan, that'll go back into that fund. And if not, as Wally said, they'll go through a collections agency.
Okay. Okay.
But none of this money will come from the county general fund.
Yeah.
This is all money that's created through the loan program itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the point of today is April 30th of 2026 is the contract closeout date between us and the state that has been open since when did you say?
I think it was November 2023. Let me just double check that.
Or was that when we renewed?
No, that was I think the original. Oh, sorry, November 2021 was when it started and the original expiration was in 23 and then we had the 2 extensions.
Okay. And then you mentioned that there is opportunity to apply for a new contract and a new round of,
Yes.
Okay.
We've had this program running since at least the 80s. That's the oldest documents I could find for it.
Sure.
And so, you know, there have been gaps in time when we haven't applied for new state funding, but we've had the revolved fund going. There have been different requirements throughout the time. So it's fluctuated and it's, you know, how effective it is. But we have been consistently doing it for a long time. And Wally and I have been working really hard to try and get it going. And if you look, we have had a number of, from the revolved fund, a number of recent loans since that change the state made, letting us, we got a certain type of designation that allows us to do the revolved fund within the city. And that just gives us a much broader area of business that we can hopefully assist.
And it is a requirement that we close this one out before we can then apply for additional funds for another round.
and can these revolve funds be used in perpetuity?
Yes, they are basically dollars that we have for the purpose of this economic development program, as long as we keep the program going.
Cool. I think a really cool thing would be to get with some of these businesses that have received the loans and maybe like tell the good news story to the community of like why this program is important and how it's benefited Pueblo. If you think that there would be willing participants to do that, I think that would be great.
That's a good idea. I know we've talked a lot. NeighborWorks has tried to meet with more with banks, and I know that when we started looking at this, one of the things is trying to market the program more. And they have been able to get more applications for it. But yeah, that's a great idea. We'll bring that up probably at the next meeting with the board and with NeighborWorks.
Thank you.
It's great.
Any other questions?
None.
Commissioner Swearingen, anything else, sir?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Sarah.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
guys. Thank you very much. All right, moving right along, we have a presentation from Mr. Russell Guerrero, and this is for approval for Pueblo County CCAP program to come off a freeze to a wait list. Exciting stuff.
Very exciting stuff.
Morning,
Anthony's,
Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning, sir.
Anthony's just going to pull up the PowerPoint and then we'll get started. Good morning, Commissioners. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Anthony. As you guys all know, I love to start every presentation with our mission, just to remind and ground people in what it is that we do at the department. So Pueblo County Department of Human Services empowers individuals and families to see their potential and improve their quality of life. And so today we are here to talk about that very mission. And it is a request from you all to move from an enrollment freeze to a wait list. This is very exciting news for our community. I do want to caveat that this request does not seek new or an additional budget allocation, but instead is intended to seek authorization to use funds already designated within the current budget. So the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program is a state supervised, county administered program that allows for us to provide eligible families with child care subsidies. There are about 28,730 children in licensed child care centers, homes, and quality exempt providers in the state of Colorado, and about 602 of those children are currently in Pueblo County. Go ahead and Russ.
Why Pueblo County implemented child care enrollment freeze? On March 1st, 2024, the Biden-Harris administration, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, through the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, published new federal rule improving child care access, affordability, and stability in the Child Care Development Fund. The rule had implementation date of May 1st, 2024, but CDEC applied for a 2-year waiver to ensure there was enough time for meaningful feedback and input from families and our partners to create rules that best met the needs of Coloradoans. An additional waiver was applied for and received, which will allow for many of these rule changes to be implemented in 2028 instead of 2026. These rule changes are expected to increase the costs of running CCAP without any extra federal dollars in allocation. For this reason, many counties, including Pueblo County, decided to implement enrollment freeze. So the ideas were good, but there was no money that came with it.
And if you remember, commissioners, we came to you at that time and we were projected to be about $1 million overspent had we not moved from normal enrollment to a freeze.
So since the freeze, Pueblo County enrollment freeze applications, these are the ones received through the months, January 1st, 2025, low-income child care, enrollment freeze implemented. These were families under 185% federal poverty level and in an approved activity. March 17th, 2025, temporary assistance to needy families, the TANF group child care enrollment freeze implemented. These are families currently receiving basic cash assistance through TANF program. So this is a month-by-month breakdown of how many applications we had. Once the freeze was in effect, the next year we had to send out renewals. So this next slide shows how many we sent out and how many we received back. Majority of enrollment freeze applicants are not turning in renewals. This could be for a variety of reasons. They found their own child care. They're tired of waiting for a freeze. A year is a long time and with no end in sight. But this is something that we're looking at because as I get to the last slide, you'll see why. Why move from enrollment freeze to wait list? As of April 23rd, 2026, there are 317 families and 481 children on enrollment freeze list. Upon evaluation of the effectiveness of enrollment freeze, it was found that Pueblo County's child care allocation is underspent by greater than $1 million. Given our mission, we are committed to supporting families in our community who need access to quality care.
Commissioners, on this slide, I just want to provide some additional information. So the reason why we are $1 million underspent is because those rules didn't go into effect that were proposed by the Biden Harris administration in part. Also in part due to when we're on a freeze, we can't add more families to that, to the roles of CCAP. So we've been able to decrease as families either age off or move or find jobs that kick them off of the program. And we were waiting for some upcoming changes. So the upcoming changes, the Department of Early Childhood will be going before the legislature tomorrow and asking for a $20 million reduction in CCAP. And so we were waiting for those figures to come out to see what that would mean for our allocation. And it looks like worst case scenario, our allocation will drop by $643,000 approximately. And so we still have room between that $1 million and the $643,000 that we might potentially lose to still add families. So it's really important that we use that difference to add as many people as we can. And a wait list will allow people to come on, and as a family leaves, then we would add on another. So it's kind of a one-off, one-on. Is that correct, Chris?
That's how it'll work. Also, any new applicants that were not previously on the wait list or on the freeze wait list would go on to a freeze list. So we would have to get through the 300 and some families first. We have to rate them, and then the new applicants would then be also rated on where they fall on coming off the wait list. They wouldn't just automatically come off unless they meet, well, I'll get to the criteria here.
So all of this is going to require a change to our county plan. So part of the reason why we're here today is to get approval to change our county plan to move from an enrollment freeze to the wait list. And Russ will talk about what that process will look like.
So the state just came out with a memo on how to come off a freeze. They wanted to make sure all the counties were following the same guidelines. That just barely came out at the end of March, beginning of April. So the first step is what we're doing today, presentation to and approval from the Pueblo County Board of Commissioners. Second, approval from Colorado Department of Early Childhood to transition from enrollment freeze to wait list through the county plan amendment process. We'll then submit a submission of updated county plan, the child care automated tracking system. We threw it through chats. The state will then provide us a letter, and we'll send out the letter, application, pre-eligibility questionnaire to send to all families on the freeze to confirm interest with a 40-day response deadline. Non-responsive families will be removed from the freeze list after 40th day. Process applications and TANF referrals to determine eligibility according to CCAT rules and prioritize population. So there's 4 categories that we have to prioritize by federal guidelines: low income, children with special needs, children experiencing homelessness, and then the state added families receiving TANF. So those 4 criteria, and we have a rating process for everyone on the list to see where they rank. If there's ties, then the tiebreaker will be the length of time they've been on the list.
And we have that meeting with the Department of Early Childhood to talk through that process on Monday. So we wanted to make sure that we had your approval to move forward with getting this moved from an enrollment freeze to a wait list so that we can help families, especially as summer's coming up and school's letting out and childcare can be harder to find. We want to make sure that we have as much availability as possible to families who need it.
Absolutely. Can you clarify just real quick? You mentioned the Colorado Department of Early Childhood is requesting a reduction.
Correct. So the State Department is requesting the $20 million decrease in the overall state allocations that then come to the counties. And they're saying that that's to align with their federal CCDF funding that they get from the federal level. Yeah.
So you can adjust that with the difference you feel will still give you capacity.
Right. We got projected adjusted numbers through the state. And so it would reduce our allocation down to about $5,466,534. So that's the $643,000 difference. And because we're $1 million short, we still have that cushion to be able to still add some families. And the goal is to get to as close as possible, right? Like to make sure that we're spending as much of our allocation helping as many folks as possible without going over, so that doesn't become 100% county funds.
Well, I don't have any objection to you moving forward with that request, so thank you.
Same here. I agree that I want to approve this. Do we need to do a formal resolution to memorialize it next week?
I don't think so. I think we just, you guys just give us the approval to do the county plan. I'm not sure. I'll ask Brendan. Brendan will tell us if we need a formal resolution, but I don't think that we do.
Okay. And then when you talk about that $5 million number, is that for both CCAP and TANF, or is that CCAP specific? And what is the like the term, the timeline on when that money can be spent?
So the anticipated $5.4 million next year is specifically for CCAP.
Okay.
But part of CCAP does help TANF families, but only with childcare. And that will start July 1st and have to be spent by June 30 of 2027.
Okay. It's a good chunk of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of childcare dollars for a community.
Yeah. And so we're making sure that we are anticipating the rules that are coming down that might change some of the fiscal impact, and also wanting to balance that with serving as many families as possible while being fiscally responsible. So we think now is the right time to be able to transition from a freeze to a wait list.
Do you have a list of CCAP eligible programs in the community that's readily available?
I believe our supervisor, CCAP, has a list of different providers, how they're broken down, including home individual families and that, but definitely the providers that we have in the community.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I approve.
Please. Thank you.
I'm good as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. All right, commissioners, before we move on, any other operational updates that we need to bring to the table today? Hearing none, that will leave us with the request for executive session.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. It would be appropriate to go into executive session for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions under CRS Section 246424B, and specific legal issues are regarding an agreement with the Running Sports Complex Commission, reorganization of the Human Resources Department and positions reporting to the Chief Administrative Officer, and the reorganization process, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS Section 246424E regarding an agreement with the Runyon Sports Complex Commission.
Thank you, ma'am. I would ask for a motion to go into executive session for the reasons cited.
So moved.
And I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are in executive session.